welcome. My name is Shannon Walsh, and I'm the local wellness advisor for Macdonald Campus and member of the Student Wellness Hub. Thank you for joining me today for part 2 of this 4-part series on helping others. I'm going to go ahead right now and share my screen now that I've had this opportunity to introduce myself. And if you could just bear with me for one moment, I'm going to get that set up. Wonderful. So today we're talking steps to take to help. If you haven't already checked out part 1, I encourage you to do so. And if this topic of helping others is of interest to you, to really look at all 4 parts, while this series is set up for each part to stand on its own, each does complement the other and builds upon each theme. So let us begin with the territory acknowledgement. McGill University is on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. Whenever I have the opportunity to present, whether it be a workshop or in a class, to take part in some community conversation or to inspire some dialogue, my hope is always that that exchange helps foster connection and a sense of belonging. And the territory acknowledgement reminds me of this intention. So the 4 parts in this series are recognizing distress, part 2 that we'll be covering today, identifying steps you can take, part 3, discovering ways to set boundaries when helping others, so really focusing on boundaries. And then part 4, last but certainly not least, self-care when we're in that helping role. So today, we're going to talk very specifically about steps. And what does that involve? Well, we're going to acknowledge some barriers to intervention. We're going to talk about what it means to create a safer space. We're going to really focus on what is useful in identifying behavior objectively, so how that's useful in intervention. And then also collaboration as a problem solver. So what does that mean to be collaborative in problem solving? So what are some of the reasons why you might hesitate to intervene when you do see a friend having difficulty? These are 3 common answers that you might make it worse, that you should wait for the person to bring it up, and that could be tied to, trusting their timing or respecting their privacy, or if they wanted to tell you, they would. And then the third one, that you might say the wrong thing. While these are very common answers to that question, like what might hold you back or why might you choose not to intervene when you see someone in distress, what I've known to be true over my career and in my life is that very often these are not factors in helping. So that you might make it worse, when someone is struggling and they're alone in their struggle, I think that is far more difficult than having somebody join with them and try and collaborate with them and finding a solution. Waiting for them to bring it up, that's a really tricky one because I've had so many students and individuals tell me over the course of my career, tell me stories of struggle and scenarios where people in their life didn't acknowledge or didn't ask or didn't try and intervene. And I've heard so many accounts of, why didn't they? Or didn't they notice? Or how come? Or maybe they didn't care. And all these things we then tell ourselves about our worthiness, or that we're invisible, or that we don't matter, right? So sometimes waiting for someone to bring it up could actually contribute to them not feeling great about themselves or not feeling worthy of intervention. So, that one in particular, I think we should try and dispel. And then that you might say the wrong thing. There are no perfect words. There's no perfect intervention. What I will say is that if your intention is pure and your heart is open and you're really just there to support and help and show concern, the words can rarely get in the way. How do you provide a safe space as a helper? Well, if possible, to pick a place where there can be some privacy, whether it be one-on-one virtually or in person, where you wouldn't necessarily have people overhearing or walking by or, interrupting. That's not always possible. When it's not possible, acknowledge that. If you're in a crowded space or there are people nearby, to check with the person if they're comfortable in the setting that you're in. Ask them if they want to move to a quieter space. Try to practice non-judgment. So what does that mean? It means listening to understand versus listening to intervene, right? So listening to understand versus thinking about our response. So making eye contact and just staying with the person. You may be being aware of whatever judgments may be surfacing within you or thoughts that might be swirling around in your head. So really trying to stay with the person and their story or their sharing. Empathy involves not only focusing on the details of their story and what they might be sharing with you, but really listening for the feeling, right? So joining them in the feeling that they're trying to express and reflecting that back, acknowledging that that must be hard and I can't even imagine, and I'm so sorry that you've had to experience that. There are things that we can say to try and really create a safe space, asking if someone's okay, and then allowing them time to answer. Acknowledging if they seem upset, and saying, you seem upset, can I help in some way? Is there anything I can do to help? Can I help you find the right person to talk to if they perhaps acknowledge that they're struggling, but don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking with you? Or if they tell you that, if they say that they don't want to talk to you about it, to not take it personally, but rather just say, that's okay. Like, I'm concerned and I'd like to help you connect with someone that you can talk to. Excuse me. Identifying behavior objectively is really about looking at verbal and nonverbal behaviors that are of concern and acknowledging them and addressing them. So, you seem upset, or I noticed that you were, or I saw that you were crying, or you seem less talkative. Just acknowledging and calling out, what your concern is. You're addressing it. You're bringing it into the conversation. We want to ask open-ended questions, so avoid the yes and no, so that we can really, open things up, open the person up, and have the dialogue be deeper and richer. When possible, we want to normalize. I say when possible because sometimes someone's going to share something with you that might be heavy, might be something that you don't have experience with, and perhaps has caught you off guard. If you rush too quickly to normalize, so normalizing is, that's okay. I think a lot of people experience that. I don't think that's uncommon. That's what normalizing would look like in a straightforward fashion. But if you have that feeling of, wow, that was a lot, and you're caught off guard and you don't have experience with what they're sharing, it is new to you, it's new information, it's a new experience to you, trying to rush to normalize will feel very phony to you, and it will come across in the connection and the conversation with the person. So say things like, wow, like that's a lot. Can we take a second? Like, I just need a second to process that. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. And no, I don't have experience with that. But I want to hear more. I want you to tell me about how you're doing, right? So we're really validating and we're normalizing that they've shared something difficult without normalizing that perhaps their experience is a very common one, if that makes sense. We want to be collaborators. We're not problem solvers, so we're there to support, not save, right? So I'd like to help if I can. Perhaps I can direct you to the appropriate service. I'm concerned, Two heads are better than one. Let's see what we can come up with. That might mean looking at resources together, right? So saying, hey, have you checked out the Student Wellness Hub? There's all kinds of offerings, whether it be self-help or telehealth, appointments with a counselor or a doctor or a nurse, a dietitian, check out a workshop or a support group. And just sitting down with them and saying, hey, let's do what there is. And is there anything here that you think you might want to try? Sorry, I jumped ahead too quickly there. And the other resource on this page, Keep Me Safe, is a 24/7 off-campus virtual support that all McGill students have access to. So, if they are opening up to you and your feeling is they really would benefit from not only your support, but widening the circle of support and including another person, a professional perhaps, these are two great resources. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share so I can say bye to you properly. Please do check out the other parts of this 4-part series, and I hope that this was useful for you today. Thank you so much.